Have you ever stopped to wonder why failure is so terrifying? Many entrepreneurs, even the most seasoned ones, share one thing in common: a fear of failure. It's almost like a taboo, something we avoid at all costs, as if failing were a direct reflection of our worth or ability. But what if I told you that failing is one of the most courageous acts you can practice as an entrepreneur? No, I'm not talking about failing for failure's sake, without learning anything in the process. I'm talking about failing in a way that allows you to grow, evolve, and eventually succeed. The truth is, no matter how hard we try to avoid it, failure is an integral part of the journey for anyone aiming to create something new, be it a business, a product, or even a revolutionary idea. And here's an uncomfortable truth. If you're not failing now and then, it's probably because you're not taking enough risks. When we talk about the courage to fail, we inevitably touch on one of the central themes of my research: vulnerability. The word vulnerability is often interpreted as weakness, but in reality, being vulnerable is being courageous. It means being willing to put yourself out there, to open up to the unknown, and yes, to fail. For an entrepreneur, this means stepping into the world with the real possibility that things might not go as planned. Now, think about the last time you failed. Maybe it was an investment that didn't pay off, a launch that didn't meet expectations, or even an idea that was rejected by investors. How did it feel? Likely shame, discouragement, or even anger. And this is where we start to understand the real pain of failure. It's not the mistake itself that hurts, but the feeling that, in some way, it defines who we are. That by failing, we're somehow less capable, less worthy of success. This is the trap of shame. It makes us believe that failure isn't a temporary experience, but rather a permanent mark on our identity. And as entrepreneurs, we fall into this trap all the time. Every mistake eats away at us, making us doubt our own abilities. But here's the truth: you are not your failure. And the sooner you learn this, the quicker you'll be on the path to success. The big question is, why are we so afraid of failure? Part of it comes from a culture that glorifies success and demonizes mistakes. From a young age, we're conditioned to believe that failing is synonymous with personal failure and that success is the only valid measure of competence. But what few people tell us is that success doesn't exist without failure. It's precisely in moments of vulnerability that we learn the most valuable lessons. Think of each failure as an opportunity to become stronger and more resilient. Failure gives us the chance to reassess, adjust, and try again with greater wisdom and experience. Entrepreneurship is a continuous cycle of trial, error, and learning. But to learn, you first have to allow yourself to make mistakes. This brings me to a crucial point. Entrepreneurship isn't about knowing all the answers from the start. It's about having the courage to face the unknown and accepting that, often, the answers will come with time, and frequently through errors. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you make room for innovation because you're no longer paralyzed by the fear of failure. You start to see mistakes as part of the process, not the end of the line. Before we continue, if this content resonates with you, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos on personal growth and entrepreneurship. Every like and subscription makes a big difference and helps us keep bringing you valuable content. Now, let's continue our conversation on the pain of failure. Failure hurts. It hurts because it challenges our sense of self-worth. And it also hurts because, as entrepreneurs, we put so much of ourselves into our businesses. We become our products, our ideas, our launches. When something doesn't work out, it feels like we're failing as people, not just as professionals. And that's where the biggest trap lies. A crucial point to understand is that, as much as you love your business, it's not you. It doesn't define your worth, it doesn't determine your dignity, and it certainly doesn't measure your capacity for long-term success. Often, all that's missing is a shift in perspective. Instead of seeing failure as proof of your inadequacy, try to view it as a learning tool. Every great entrepreneur we admire has failed many times. Steve Jobs was fired from his own company. Elon Musk faced nearly a dozen bankruptcies before the world started seeing him as a visionary. The difference between them and those who give up is simple. They learned from their mistakes, allowed themselves to feel the pain, but didn't let it paralyze them. Instead, they used failure as fuel for the next attempt. Here's an important reflection. Have you ever thought about what you'd do if you knew you couldn't fail? What risks would you take? What dreams would you chase? This question matters because it shifts the focus from fear to possibilities. But the truth is, we can't completely eliminate the risk of failure. What we can and must do is develop the courage to get back up after every fall. When we talk about the courage to fail, what we're really saying is the courage to keep going. It's not just about accepting mistakes. It's about understanding that failure is temporary, while determination is permanent. If you allow yourself to keep trying, regardless of setbacks, success will come eventually. The path may be longer and more winding than expected, but it's there. As entrepreneurs, we need to cultivate resilience. And resilience isn't about being unshakable. It's about getting back up after every fall. Entrepreneurship is, in many ways, an exercise in perseverance. There's no success without challenges, and there are no great entrepreneurs without battle scars. You have to be willing to fall, get hurt, and still rise with the same determination you had at the start. Here's an important reflection. Have you ever thought about what you'd do if you knew you couldn't fail? What risks would you take? What dreams would you chase? This question matters because it shifts the focus from fear to possibilities. But the truth is, we can't completely eliminate the risk of failure. What we can and must do is develop the courage to get back up after every fall. When we talk about the courage to fail, what we're really saying is the courage to keep going. It's not just about accepting mistakes. It's about understanding that failure is temporary, while determination is permanent. If you allow yourself to keep trying, regardless of setbacks, success will come eventually. The path may be longer and more winding than expected, but it's there. As entrepreneurs, we need to cultivate resilience. And resilience isn't about being unshakable. It's about getting back up after every fall. Entrepreneurship is, in many ways, an exercise in perseverance. There's no success without challenges, and there are no great entrepreneurs without battle scars. You have to be willing to fall, get hurt, and still rise with the same determination you had at the start. Another essential lesson failure teaches us is the importance of vulnerability in leadership. As leaders, we often feel the need to project an image of perfection, as if we're immune to making mistakes. But the truth is, people don't connect with perfection, they connect with authenticity. Showing your humanity, your mistakes, and the lessons you've learned along the way isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. When you admit you don't have all the answers, you make room for collective growth. You invite your team to contribute, to share ideas, and to feel genuinely part of the process. Vulnerability fosters an environment of trust and collaboration, where mistakes are viewed as part of learning and not as sources of shame. By leading with vulnerability, you inspire others to do the same. And when that happens, innovation thrives. Being a vulnerable leader is, in essence, being a courageous leader. It means having the courage to admit that you, too, fail, that you also feel fear, but that you don't let these feelings define your actions. This creates a far stronger organizational culture, where people feel safe to take risks and innovate, knowing that failure will be met with understanding and learning, not punishment. Now, we come to the most important point. How do you rewrite the story of failure in your life? It all starts with a shift in mindset. Instead of seeing failure as something to fear and avoid at all costs, start viewing it as an opportunity to grow. The key to overcoming the fear of failure lies in accepting that it's part of the process, and that without it, success simply isn't possible. Rewriting the narrative also means allowing yourself to be kind to yourself. It's understanding that failure doesn't make you any less worthy of success. It makes you more experienced. Every failure is a building block on your path to success, and the sooner you accept this, the faster you'll move forward. Redefine your relationship with failure. Instead of avoiding it, embrace it as a natural part of the journey. You don't need to enjoy failing, but you do need to stop letting the fear of failure paralyze your actions. Often, the fear of failure keeps entrepreneurs from making bold, necessary decisions. They choose to stay in their comfort zone, where risks are low, but so are the rewards. One of the biggest insights here is that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the path. Once you understand this, you start allowing yourself to take more risks. And it's in these risks, where uncertainty and vulnerability live, that great innovations emerge. Think of the entrepreneurs you admire. All of them, without exception, failed before they succeeded. They stumbled, they made mistakes, but what sets them apart is their ability to keep trying, learning, and adapting. This process is what I call practicing courage. It's not something that happens overnight. Courage is like a muscle. It needs continuous exercise. Each time you choose to face a new challenge, even with the possibility of failure, you're strengthening that muscle. And the more you practice, the braver you become. One of the most fascinating things about entrepreneurship is its direct link to innovation. And innovation, in turn, is intrinsically connected to vulnerability. To innovate is, by definition, to do something new. And when we try something new, there are no guarantees. We don't know if it will work out. In a way, we're exposed. This is the cycle of vulnerability and innovation. The more you allow yourself to be vulnerable, the more innovative you become. That's because you're willing to explore uncharted territory, to think outside the box, to challenge the status quo. Innovation doesn't come from fear. It comes from the courage to explore the unknown. And failure is part of that exploration. I know that as entrepreneurs, many of you feel the pressure to always get it right, to never fail, especially when investors, clients, or employees are counting on you. But remember, great companies, groundbreaking ideas, and major revolutions were never born from absolute certainty. They came from a willingness to fail, learn, and try again. Failure is, in fact, the price of admission for innovation. If you want to be an innovative entrepreneur, you need to accept that mistakes are part of the process, not as an unwelcome detour, but as an essential step. This acceptance is liberating because it takes away the burden of always having to be right. It gives you the freedom to experiment and learn. Another powerful lesson failure teaches us is the ability to create genuine connections. When we're honest about our failures and vulnerabilities, we open up a space of authenticity that allows others to connect with us on a deeper level. This is essential, especially for entrepreneurs working with teams, clients, and business partners. When you're open about the challenges you face and the mistakes you've made, it fosters empathy. People don't connect with an image of perfection. They connect with humanity. And nothing is more human than admitting that, yes, sometimes we fail. By sharing your vulnerabilities, you show that you're no different from anyone else, that, like everyone, you're in a continuous process of growth and learning. This authentic vulnerability also strengthens your leadership. Leaders who have the courage to admit their mistakes and share their lessons are seen as trustworthy and approachable. They create an environment where team members feel safe to take risks, innovate, and, if needed, make mistakes. And it's in this kind of environment that the most revolutionary ideas emerge. If you lead a team, ask yourself, what kind of culture are you creating? Is it one where people are afraid to make mistakes? Where failure is punished? Or is it a culture where mistakes are seen as a natural part of learning? The answer to these questions can determine the future of your business. Now, let's talk about transforming that fear of failure into action. The fear of failure, as debilitating as it can be, is a natural emotion. We all feel it. But what separates successful entrepreneurs from those who give up is how they deal with this fear. They don't let it stop them from acting. Instead, they acknowledge it and move forward, even with the uncertainty. Here's a simple but powerful exercise you can try when the fear of failure starts to take over. Ask yourself what the worst-case scenario would look like. Imagine in detail what would happen if you failed. What would the real impact be on your life? Most of the time, you'll find that the worst-case scenario isn't as catastrophic as it first seemed. This helps put your fear into perspective. Then ask yourself, what would you gain if you tried and failed anyway? Maybe you'd learn something valuable. Maybe you'd discover a better approach to the problem. Maybe you'd meet new people or make unexpected connections. Even in failure, there's always something to be gained. Finally, ask yourself, what do you lose if you don't try? This is the crucial point. The fear of failure often blinds us to the fact that by not trying, we're already failing. We're missing opportunities for learning, growth, and success. Not taking action out of fear of failure is the worst kind of failure because it means giving up the chance to improve. We've reached a central point, redefining what success truly means. Many entrepreneurs see success as the absence of failures. But, as we've discussed, this is an unrealistic expectation. Success isn't about never making mistakes, it's about continuing to move forward despite them. It's about the ability to learn from failure and use those lessons to grow stronger. When we redefine success this way, failure stops being something to fear. It becomes a natural step in the journey. And at this moment, we can finally free ourselves from the crushing weight of perfection. Perfectionism is the enemy of courage. It makes us believe that we're only worthy of love and respect if we don't make mistakes, but that's a false belief. True success lies in authenticity, in the courage to keep going, even when things go wrong. Entrepreneurship is a journey. And like any journey, there will be highs and lows, moments of triumph and moments of defeat. What defines this journey isn't the absence of failure, but how you handle it. If you can pick yourself up after every fall, learn from each mistake, and keep moving forward, then you're already on the right path. The courage to fail doesn't mean you'll seek out failure. It means you won't fear making mistakes or let setbacks define you. By embracing failure as part of the process, you become a stronger, more resilient, and, above all, braver entrepreneur. Let's explore another key aspect of the entrepreneurial journey, sharing failure. Often, when we fail, our instinct is to hide our mistakes, as if that could shield us from criticism or judgment. But sharing your failures can be one of the most powerful things you can do, not just for yourself, but for other entrepreneurs as well. When you honestly share your failures, you build a bridge of connection with others. Remember, success is inspiring, but failure is what truly connects. By talking about our mistakes and the lessons we've learned, we give others the chance to see that they're not alone. We show that failure is normal and that it's possible to overcome it. This fosters a culture of support instead of judgment. Entrepreneurs who talk openly about their failures are often seen as more approachable, more human, and, paradoxically, more successful. Because, ultimately, we all know the entrepreneurial journey isn't perfect, and those who have the courage to share their missteps reinforce the value of authenticity and transparency. Another crucial point is the positive impact vulnerability can have on the relationships you build in the business world. Throughout your journey, you'll connect with investors, partners, suppliers, and clients. In all these interactions, authenticity will be a decisive factor in strengthening those bonds. Vulnerability builds trust. Think about it. When an investor or client sees that you're transparent about the challenges you face, they're more likely to trust you. This is because you're not trying to sell an unrealistic image of perfection. Instead, you're showing that, even in the face of obstacles, you have the ability to learn, adapt, and move forward. This builds credibility. Moreover, leaders who embrace vulnerability inspire their teams to be more open and innovative. When you create an environment where everyone feels safe to make mistakes and learn, you're planting the seeds of creativity. Your team knows they can take risks without fear of harsh punishments or excessive judgment, which encourages new ideas and more effective problem-solving approaches. Now, let's talk about the deepest lesson failure teaches us: growth. In every failure, there's an opportunity for personal and professional growth. But this opportunity only appears if you have the right mindset to see it. When we fail, the pain can be intense, but it's also one of the most powerful emotions to push us toward evolution. To turn failure into growth, you need to pause and reflect. What can I learn from this experience? Often, we're so eager to get back up and try again that we don't take time to understand what went wrong. Without this analysis, we risk repeating the same mistakes in the future. Self-reflection is a key component in transforming mistakes into stepping stones for success. Here's a practical exercise. The next time you face a failure, set aside time to write about the experience. Note the circumstances that led to the mistake, what you could have done differently, and most importantly, the lessons you can carry forward. This process of documenting and analyzing is essential for extracting the maximum learning from each situation. Failure also builds emotional resilience. Each time you pick yourself up after a setback, you become stronger and better prepared to face future challenges. Resilience is one of the most crucial qualities an entrepreneur can develop because the path to success is full of obstacles. The more you practice bouncing back from mistakes, the better equipped you'll be for any adversity that comes your way. We've talked a lot about vulnerability, but there's another essential element often overlooked: empathy. Empathy is crucial not only for connecting with others, but also for connecting with yourself. When we fail, it's common to be extremely critical of our own actions. This inner critic can be harsh, making us feel incompetent or undeserving of success. But failure is painful enough on its own. We don't need to add more suffering to the process. This is where self-compassion comes in. Instead of punishing yourself for making mistakes, treat yourself with the same empathy you'd offer a friend in the same situation. Ask yourself, how would I handle this if it were someone else? What words of encouragement would I offer? Self-compassion isn't a sign of weakness. It's a form of courage. By being kind to yourself in moments of failure, you strengthen your ability to move forward rather than getting stuck in a cycle of self-sabotage. It also helps break the cycle of shame that often stops us from taking action after a setback. Successful entrepreneurs know that failure is inevitable, but they also know it doesn't have to be the end. With empathy, both toward yourself and others, you create a strong emotional foundation for tackling the challenges that come your way. Have you ever considered the impact your failure might have on others' lives? Often, when we focus on our own mistakes, we forget that our story can be a source of inspiration for others. Sharing your failures and the lessons you've learned from them not only strengthens your own journey, but can also open doors for other entrepreneurs facing similar challenges. By speaking openly about your setbacks, you send a powerful message. I failed too, and that's okay. This encourages others to be bolder, to take risks, and not to give up after the first stumble. In a way, by sharing your experiences, you become a mentor to those just beginning their entrepreneurial journey. Beyond this, you create a culture of support and growth in your environment. If you lead a team, for instance, imagine the positive impact of showing that failure isn't the end of the road, but an opportunity to learn and innovate. This not only eases the pressure on others, but also fosters a more collaborative and creative work environment. One of the biggest obstacles we face when we fail is shame. Shame is an isolating emotion that makes us feel unworthy of connection, support, and love. When we fail, we often shrink back, trying to hide our mistakes to avoid the judgment of others. But it's this very shame that prevents us from moving forward. To overcome shame, we have to name it. Instead of letting it consume you, acknowledge its presence. Talk about it with someone you trust, someone who can offer empathy and support. When we bring shame into the light, it loses its power. Remember, shame only grows in silence and isolation. The more you talk about your failures and vulnerabilities, the more you free yourself from this paralyzing emotion. Moreover, when you share your shame and receive empathy in return, something powerful happens. You realize you're not alone, that everyone has failed and felt shame at some point. This realization creates a healing space where failure stops being a permanent mark and instead becomes a passing experience. If you've made it this far, it's because you've already started transforming your mindset about failure. You're learning that failure isn't the end, but the beginning of a new phase, one that's stronger, wiser, and more resilient. In the end, the courage to fail is the courage to live fully, to take risks, to chase big dreams, even with the possibility of mistakes. Now it's your turn. Put into practice what we've discussed. Embrace your mistakes, turn failure into learning, and have the courage to keep trying. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and share it with friends who also need this message. Let's take this journey together. And that's exactly what sets successful entrepreneurs apart: the willingness to take risks, to try, and sometimes to fail. There's no success without courage, and there's no courage without vulnerability. Keep this in mind at every step of your journey. So, the next time you face failure, don't shy away from it. Embrace it. Use it as fuel for your next attempt. Know that even when things don't go as planned, you're growing, evolving, and becoming a stronger, braver entrepreneur. After all, failure doesn't define you. What defines you is the courage to move forward despite it.